All right, now we are introducing Wilbur Quirk. Most of you will know Wilbur, but he is a member. He is the current vice chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And as you all know, the Community Preservation Act is one that provides that we have a little bit added to our taxes, and those funds come back to the town for use for a few very definite purposes. The first article under the Community Preservation Act appropriations is Article 41, to see if the town will act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2026 Community Preservation budget, and to appropriate from Community Preservation Fund, pursuant to General Laws Chapter 44B, Section 6, a sum of money to meet the administrative expenses and all other necessary and proper expenses of the Community Preservation Committee for fiscal year 2026. And to reserve for later appropriation monies from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues or available funds for open space, historic resources, and community housing purposes, as well as a sum of money to be placed in the fiscal year 2026 budgeted reserve for general Community Preservation Act purposes. And further, to appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund a sum or sums of money for Community Preservation Act projects or purposes as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. This article is identical, I think, from year to year, and it's basically
record keeping. It is basically archiving the records for the town clerk's office. We haven't archived in 20 years. We have records going back to 1743. And what this money does, not only does it archive going backwards, but it sets a program in place so every year we can archive. So it is tied into the state, and I think it's long overdue. And the one thing I do want to say, with all these projects we're going to talk about tonight, all 10 of them, they've been unanimously approved by the committee. And a lot of back and forth, obviously, because Peg, you've been on the
I served on that committee, yes.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth, but we're at the point where everything was unanimously voted on, so that is a good thing, including this project. So I think this is a great project. It's not a lot of money. It's $24,000 from the CPA funds, and we'll have something that works going forward.
Forever.
Puts us in the 21st century. That's what it does.
So many of you already know that the Community Preservation Committee receives applications annually, generally I think in December, from
a little earlier.
Members of the community and the surrounding area who make proposals for use of Community Preservation Act funds. And the committee then meets, they divide up the projects, committee members each take charge of one of them, and they make the contact with the applicants, so you don't have 9 committee members talking to everybody. Then they come back together, sometimes with appearances, sometimes not, to discuss the merits of the applications. And occasionally an application isn't actually appropriate for CPC, but
happens.
that can be determined fairly early on so that the applicants have a chance to try something else. So that's a normal introductory article for the Community Preservation Committee. Next, Article 42 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of preserving and restoring the gravestones at the historic South Street Cemetery, with said funds to be expended under the direction of the Veterans Graves Officer.
Perfect. This project has actually been ongoing since basically community preservation has started. It's gravestone restoration. We have many cemeteries throughout our town, and what they basically do is some of them are chipped, some of them are dirty, some of them fallen, broken, the whole thing. They restand them, they clean them. It's with a chemical process. They've been doing that, and what happens is there's a group of people that go into the cemetery and they'll look at the worst ones that we have in that particular cemetery, and they'll say, these are the ones we've marked for restoration. And it happens every year, and if you go into our cemeteries, you'll see the work that they've done. Unfortunately, the town is very, very old, so some of those gravestones are very, very old. Right, they are, so that's good.
Just so you know, our Veterans Graves Officer is Mr. Vincent Viglione, and he has been doing this almost, again, since the inception of the Community Preservation Committee.
Yep.
And he submits an application annually, and is almost always approved because his work is meticulous.
It is. And I think the great thing about him is not only does he do great work, but he comes back to the Community Preservation Committee the next year and says, here's all the photos of everything we've
Here's
done.
before, here's after, here's the improvement that's been made.
You can see
so
all
it
that,
is a great deal of support, of documentation to show the benefit of the work that he does.
That is correct. Yep.
I remember that because the new members always get to be the liaison for that application because it's pretty simple because Mr. Viglione is very, very meticulous and very expert at submitting an application.
That's right.
All right, let's see, where are we? So Article 43, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of preserving and archiving historic town records. This is similar to the first thing you talked about, right?
Right.
First was the...
It is very similar.
So, and this, again, this is town records that are moldering away.
That's right.
Number of hundreds of years old, and this way we don't lose that information. Am I correct? So the committee voted again unanimously.
Absolutely.
To support this application.
Yes.
All right, that's
And I'll say it again, it brings us into the 21st century, so there you go. Ish. That's correct.
All right, so now we're going to go to Article 44 to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of preparing a survey of the parcels of land identified as assessors parcels 20619, 20619.13, 20619.14, and or others, including the placing of markers or monuments to establish parcel boundaries. Could you just make it a little clearer what parcels these are?
Sure. This is they call it the Jackson open space areas up by Gulf Road. And so they were looking for a survey, roughly of $5,300. So what's happened is the surveying somehow has gotten a little convoluted.
Convoluted?
Thank you.
Is it because it's hard to find the markers now? Or?
Yes, that is part of it. So that's what this survey will do. Make the markers all clean, make the borders all clean of all the areas up there, the ones that are open space for Belchertown and things like that.
All right, so it won't be the third maple tree on the left and look for the boulder.
No, that's right.
So I'm sorry to lose that. That's very kind of a charming New England thing, but it's probably better to have it marked.
I agree.
All right, so Article 45, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of preserving and rehabilitating the historic Firefighters Museum located at 31 North Main Street, which building is listed on the Massachusetts Registry of Historic Places as BLC 94, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into a grant agreement with the Belchertown Firefighters Association to set forth the terms of said grant.
Okay, one of the great things is we have a old town. The Belchertown Museum was built in 1903 and has equipment dating back into the 1800s. So there's a lot of very historical equipment there. We see it sometimes in the parades and things that we have there. And the exterior work of the building really needs to happen. So there is some painting done, there's some scraping done. We've got a foundation drainage issue we've got to do. There's some openings that little critters are getting into from time to time, so we got to make sure that we do something with that. And we got to remove some mold, and we have some electrical fixtures on the outside that we have to do some work with too. So we actually...
Can you just explain, I'm sorry, are they looking for additional grants and the Select Board are going to have some
No, I think this grant...
Or this is just this grant and the Select Board will then enter into an agreement?
I believe that's what happens.
Okay.
What I can tell you is this particular grant is, they're asking for about half of the money. The project's about $7,500. They're asking for roughly half of that money from community preservation. So I think it's just specifically to do this work that I just outlined. That's what it is. So,
okay, just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand you. It's only $7,500 for the entire project? They know how to do this in a very efficient manner, it sounds like to me.
Do.
That's terrific.
They do.
All right,
Yes.
Article 46, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money for the purpose of preserving and rehabilitating the 1893 horse barn at Lampson Brook Farm, located at 275 Jackson Street and identified as Assessor's Parcel 243-178.01, which barn became part of the Belchertown State School Farm in 1916, including without limitation replacing the roof and cupola of said barn, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into a grant agreement to set forth the terms of said grant.
Yeah, one thing I want to say about this grant is it started at a certain amount to do just the repair in the inside. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, we got to do the roof. It doesn't make any sense if we do the whole inside.
Repair the inside if the water's coming through.
That's right. And the cupola too. So
yeah.
We're actually doing all three of those now. So the grant was increased a little bit to do all that. There's a lot of different groups that use that farm. It could be the 4-H, it could be the walking clubs, it could
Community
be
gardens.
community gardens do it too. And all the residents of Belchertown can use that facility. It is a historical piece. It goes way back. It's something that has been long overdue to do these fixes, and once we're fixed, we're going to be good for a long, long time.
Well, the longer you let it go, the more it costs to do.
That is the other issue too.
I will point out, in case you haven't been watching, if you walk the Lake Wallace Sensory Trail and you've been watching the development of Phase 2, the end of that development currently overlooks that barn, both barns on that property, as well as the community gardens. So it's all part of the rural agricultural character of the town. So kind of got to be in favor of that.
Yes, yes, I agree with that.
Alrighty, Article 47, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money for the purpose of rehabilitating the historic gardens at the historic McPherson Garden, including, without limitation, complying with ADA accessibility requirements, and further, to authorize the Select Board, in consultation with the Historical Commission and the Community Preservation Committee, to enter into a grant agreement to set forth the terms of said grant, with said funds to be expended under the direction of the Select Board.
There you go. This is a great grant for a couple of reasons. There's been a lot of momentum over at the Sensory Garden from a ton of people doing a ton of different work. What's great about this is the garden was built back in 1926, so we're almost at the 100-year mark, and it was built, there's some history with it, that it was for the superintendent that was in town at that time, him and his wife, and all this other kind of stuff, which is kind of neat. It's going to have complete handicap access. It's located, I say located behind the pickleball courts up in...
Right up the hill from the pickleball courts, in case you weren't sure.
That's right. That's exactly where it is. And they're using polymeric sands instead of chemicals on some of the work that they're going to do. So there's that... I don't want to say earthy crunchy because that's not right, but the environmental piece for it is kind of nice. And they're going to have picnic tables, they're going to have benches, so any beautiful day you can just go up there, and it's got that nice stone wall enclosure that they've done a lot of work on, and they're going to be doing a lot of planting and things like that. So it's a great project.
If you haven't visited the McPherson Garden and you have questions about this, it's fairly simple to get to. It's if you've been in town long enough, you'll remember where the superintendent's home was up the hill. You also will remember where the family center building was. That's the driveway, and you follow your nose up the hill, ignoring the pickleball courts on the right, and go to the top of the hill, and you can see the 100-year-old dry stack stone wall that surrounds the interior garden. And there already are, I think there's at least one picnic table, maybe two, and there is, I think, already at least one bench and one garden chair. So you can go up and have a look and inform yourself so that you will know how to vote on this article.
That's right. One thing I want to say about this grant was the grant is basically for $18,000 and they're asking for $6,000. So 2/3 of the money is from the members of this garden group that have put their skin in the game.
And the community and some of our very generous donors who have provided some of those funds.
Absolutely.
So you're getting your money's worth.
That's right.
Let's see, I think we're at Article 48. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money for the purpose of undertaking the aquatic restoration program to support and enhance the ongoing lake management initiatives for the Tri-Lake system, including without limitation, protecting, preserving, and enhancing the Tri-Lakes water clarity, quality, and safety, controlling invasive aquatic plants, protecting the Tri-Lakes ecological, recreational, and economic values, and preparing an integrated plant management plan.
Yes, that's a lot, and
It is a lot.
it's a great thing that they're doing up there. Unfortunately, with climate change, we have the problem of waters are a little bit warmer now. Unfortunately, they don't freeze up like they used to in the winters, and that has been a problem. But yes, all 3 lakes are going to be treated, and for the invasive species that keeps coming in.
Continually.
Oh, continually comes
Constantly.
up there. So, and they've got a plant management system in place. So what this basically is going to give them a big shot in the arm, I guess you could call that. They're going to get all 3 lakes to a certain point, and it's going to be a lot easier to maintain and manage it going down the road. So it's a little more money than normally what you'd spend on this kind of project, but it sets everything in place. It's kind of like archiving the records, right?
Again,
We get it.
long-term benefits.
Long-term benefits, absolutely. Yep.
Most of you already know that if you have a lake near your property and you don't take care of it, eventually becomes a pond, and then the pond becomes a swamp, and then the swamp becomes a field with a few oddball little plants in it, and you lose your lovely lake. So these things are necessary for the health and well-being of the Tri-Lakes area, and it's a draw for Belchertown. It's part of probably of our economic benefit. It draws, and our town beach is situated on Lake Arcadia, which is one of the 3 lakes.
Right.
So now you have some background.
There you go.
Article 49, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money for the purpose of rehabilitating and improving the safety and playing conditions of the Belchertown High School field, containing approximately 100,000 square feet, including, without limitation, removing the current sod, thatch, and soil matter, power raking the soil, drainage improvements, top dressing, laser leveling I think that's probably of the field, installation of new sod and application of fertilizer, soil amendments, and lime, installing a new irrigation irrigation well with appropriate connections, and inspecting and adjusting irrigation sprinkler heads and schedules as needed to ensure proper watering.
I know.
How old are those fields?
Those fields were there when the school was built, so it's over 20 years old.
More than 20 years.
Right, and I can tell you, because my kids, all 3 of them played on those fields, and they were in tough shape back then, and that was 15 years ago. So what this does basically is it starts it from scratch. It's very expensive, but the issue they've had, as you know, recently, as you and I are filming right now, we've had rain for 2 weeks now, right? We've had so much rain.
Constant.
But last year there was a lot of drought, and when you have drought on a field that's being used, it's going to get torn up, and that's what's happened. So now we have a watering system that will be in place through a well, and we also have a maintenance program that everybody has agreed to make sure that we're not only watering, but we're taking care of the weeding, we're taking care of all of it. So the project is a great project. So many people use that BHS stadium. They use it not only for high school sports, they use it for other things too. So, and people just come and walk on the track. A lot of people walk on that track. I've done that myself. So I think this is a great project, and I think it'll be good for future years. So they're not running into this problem. Do we have a drought? That's a problem. If we don't have a drought and we have plenty of water, then we don't have to water. So we got a system in place that will keep this field looking good. And the one thing I do want to say, because I coached soccer for the high school, and I had a coach say to me one day, he says, "You have an incredible soccer program. You have the worst fields in the whole Western Mass." And I said, "Yeah, you're probably right."
Well, that's humiliating.
That is humiliating, And we said, "Well, we're working on it." So
okay, but and I'm going to ask, does the committee? I shouldn't be asking a lot of questions.
Sure,
You'll have lots of opportunities to ask at town meeting. I just want to know: do you look at the life term of projects like this?
We do. So on this project, what happened, without getting into a lot of specifics, is we said, we will not fund this project if you do not have a future maintenance program, a year-to-year program to keep the field looking like brand new, because that's where we're putting it for you.
That's the aim for this.
That was the aim, because the last thing we wanted is to put all this money into a brand new field, and then 2 years down the road, there's no watering, there's no weed control and things like that, and you're back to square one again. So, saying all that, everybody's made the agreement. BOA, which is the Athletic Association.
Belchertown Orioles Athletic Association.
Which I've been part of for about 20 years.
For many years.
Yes. Eric, who is their president, has set everything up. So, and the parents are all on board with it, and we're going to get this thing done, and it's going to look great. So someday I'll run into that coach again and I'll say, what do you think of our fields? Because the whole stadium is just wonderful. The seating, the track, the accessibility from the parking lot, all that is wonderful. So now, we're going to have a great field too.
We're putting in another piece that will make it even more wonderful.
Absolutely, we sure will.
So I want to reiterate, if you have questions or concerns about any of these articles, you'll have a chance at town meeting to bring them up. What we aim for on a night like tonight is to give you some background so that maybe you won't have a lot of questions, and maybe you'll see some of the history and the purpose of these warrant articles. We have one more, Wilbur, to do, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Fund a sum of money for the purpose of rehabilitating and restoring the existing Town Beach parking lot and constructing new stormwater management features at the Town Beach facility located at 21 Town Beach Road. I hope everybody knows where that is, I hope.
You bet, you bet. The parking lot is, I just want to say, it's kind of a mess. So that is not the only function of this money too. The other thing is the stormwater management system has to be done too. That town beach gets used, people think of just the swimming. It's used for a lot of other things. You can just go to the beach and sit there. It's really a nice place to spend a day and have a picnic lunch, and they have concessions, and we've had movies there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's gone on. And this will put this town beach like #1 on the map. No one will go to Cape Cod anymore. They'll just come to our town beach. So there you go.
Town Beach is under the direction of our Parks and Recreation Department. Okay.
Yes.
So again, if you have questions about Town Beach, you can go to the Recreation Parks and Recreation Department webpage and probably put your questions in there, but you'll have a chance at town meeting. It's going to be a long day, and it's going to be a hot day, and this is Article 50. So the more you know in advance, the better off all of us will be, I think. And we are enormously grateful to you, Wilbur, for coming and spending a Friday evening with us and talking about these articles, which you're all paying for. So it's good if you know
I totally agree.
What they are and why the Community Preservation Committee is hoping that town meeting will approve them.
Right, and I just want to welcome anyone to come to our community preservation. It's 2 Tuesdays during the month. Basically, we meet for 10 months during the year. We don't meet in the summer. And it's very interesting. We have a lot of different people that come in that talk about their projects, and you were right, we all get assigned a project, but the great thing is every member can ask questions about the grant
sure,
proposal.
About any project. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make that confusing.
Nope.
I just know it's easier to have one liaison if you're an applicant to bring questions to you and to bring answers back from you. And then if it gets complicated or confusing, generally you will be called in and you can have a meeting with the whole committee.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, can I say one more thing? I love community preservation, and so many of these projects that you hear about tonight would never, ever, ever happen if we didn't have
There would be
community
no
preservation.
funding, that's right. If the town hadn't passed this.
Right. And the big thing for
approval.
community preservation is we get matching grants from the state. So if you're a town that doesn't have any community preservation, then some of your tax dollars are going into the state that ends up turning around and coming to us in Belchertown. So
Sure,
it's a
it
great
doesn't
thing.
come back to your community necessarily if you don't participate.
Right.
But it also means that things you maybe don't think of as necessary or critical can be addressed by this group, this committee, and by town meeting to try to improve, once again, the experience of Belchertown, which we think is wonderful.
We do.
It's our pleasure to do this, Wilbur. We like doing it every year, and we thank you for your time.
Okay.
We thank all of you for watching, and we hope to see you again soon at town meeting. All right, just reminding everyone that this year's town meeting is on May 31st. The special will be at 8:30. The annual will be at 9. You should all be there. I think we're going to have big numbers this year, so try to get there early. You'll be voting with the clicker system, which most of you will remember, and should make things go a little more quickly, but it's going to be a long day. with 50 articles to address. So we hope we've answered some of your questions in advance, and if not, you are welcome to ask them at town meeting, and we will see you all there. One thing you should all know is that daycare is now provided at this town meeting because it's on a Saturday. So in the cafeteria at the high school, if you have little ones, you want to come to town meeting, drop them off at the daycare.